What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the lab. I'm your host, Joshua Diaz. It's great to see you. Great to be here. We got an excellent show for you tonight with some fantastic guests, and so thankful for their time. And let me introduce you to the panel tonight. Down below me, we have John Lamb. He is a retired homicide sergeant and hostage negotiator, also author and bungee jumper extraordinaire.
Yeah, and I do that dressed as a gladiator.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, I am a complete nerd when I'm not on here. I mean, the things that entertain me, like you want to know what the high point for me was today?
Yeah, I do, actually.
I collect police shoulder patches, which is a real nerdy endeavor, I got to admit.
Yeah, that's only a brief sample behind you there on the wall.
Yeah, that's a brief sample. I've got right around 2,000 patches.
How does one go about collecting those?
You can trade with other officers, and I've done that where you will go in person to places and come in with a patch and go, hey, you know, patch collector, and sometimes you'll get the bums rush. Sometimes they'll give you a patch. In one instance where I went into an Alabama, they came out with a shirt sleeve that they cut off some guy's uniform that was coming in later that night. And Bessemer, Alabama, and they cut this guy's uniform shirt. It was hanging, had come back from the dry cleaners, and they said, you know, Tommy ain't going to be happy when he sees this shirt sleeve gone. So we'd recommend you go. And then there's eBay sells them, and so for me it's and I've got lists and everything else. I mean, I'm an utter nerd in the arena of police shoulder patches, and if you get me started, I'll tell you weird stuff, and that's only interesting to other similarly brain damaged people like me. But it's a delight to be here, Josh, and looking forward to interacting with your audience and discussing this with you and Chris.
Yeah, we got some interesting stuff to discuss. We just discussed something interesting, something I never knew existed. I think it's really cool when people collect things, whatever it is. I don't collect anything. I don't know what my problem is. Never. I don't collect baseball cards. I don't collect anything. Chris, what about you? And host of the interview room right here, Chris McDonough. If you haven't, make sure to go over there and sub up. He's had some excellent shows going on, and I believe he has a show planned for tomorrow and Wednesday, correct?
Yes. Tomorrow, actually, Karen has a guest coming on, Anjanette Levy from Long Crime. So they're going to have a girls' night out, we'll call it. They're going to get together, and then Wednesday we're going to do a show. I'll let everybody know. We'll leak that out tomorrow a little bit more.
Very cool.
But yeah, we've got a really exciting both John and Josh will be there on Wednesday night.
We'll be
but it's going to be a really super show, and we're going to talk about Bitcoin. But the experts that I got coming on are going to blow your mind. And collection. Well, first of all, I love John. I mean, I've known him since 1982. And not only have I had the privilege to work for him, but he has been, salt of the earth and a dear friend. So even though he calls himself a nerd, I don't concur with that at all. But he does collect, a tremendous amount of. He is the collector. I mean, for lack of a better term, and just how fun he is. His wife got him into, collecting teddy bears. Our Joycer. For many, many years. And that was a great hobby for the two of them to get together. But
It's cool.
Yeah, we had over 500 of them, teddy bears.
yeah, and thus his books. Those of you who have written his books or who have read his book, excuse me. But the only thing I have is that little challenge coin collection behind you. And I love to listen and learn and collect stories essentially from people and learn about people's lives. That's kind of my thing.
Yeah.
And I play guitar.
Yeah.
You sure do. You're very, very talented too. You're not a strummer either. You pick it pretty well. I've watched you do it. It's
I've been playing a couple of weekends. 1972 is when I started playing guitar. And John knows because in San Diego I used to play.
You used to play coffee houses and restaurants. Yeah, Joyce and I would go see him. I particularly remember a night in Carlsbad when you were doing it at that Greek restaurant, and you really had an appreciative crowd. It was great music.
I used to play all over San Diego County, and I opened one night for a Hawaiian slack key guitarist by the name of Keola Beamer at Humphreys by the Bay. Which is a huge venue. If you've never been.
That is a top-notch venue.
And I was the only white guy in a cast of 56 Polynesians called Cowie Brown's Polynesian Review. And I was the guitar player in the band when their original guitar player was sick. They would call me and I'd be the one white guy with 56 Polynesians. It was amazing, and we'd play all over the place. But
I could see you just fitting right in with anybody, though.
Oh, they were awesome. It was so funny because they had a whole shtick where I would, when the nights I was there anyway, you know how they like to get the audience come up and do the dance and the hula dance, and then they do the drums and everything. Well, in the middle of it, they would stop and they would say, so for the audience, we just want to let you know we got one of you. And then the spotlight would come on with me in the background in the band. And they go, yeah, this is Kimo. And they go, Kimo, stand up. Right. And I'd be like, oh, crap. And I'd stand up. And it was great stuff, great shtick. And I'd be between these two huge Hawaiian. I got one guy on one side, a guy named Richard T. Elavia, is a Samoan. And then the guy on the other side is Keenan Kanahele. He's from Hawaii. And I'd be in the middle and they'd go, that's our Oreo.
That's awesome.
It was so much fun.
Yeah, because you were in Hawaii weren't you lived in Hawaii for a while, didn't you?
For a total of about 7 years total.
Yeah. Yeah, I grew up
mostly as a kid.
I grew up with Samoans and Polynesians. We had a big Samoan population here in Northern California, and we all grew up together, played sports, and one of my friends went on to he owns a chain of Polynesian barbecue restaurants.
Oh, nice.
I mean, and they're like, it's absolutely, he slow cooks everything. And it's some of the best food ever. And is
it all up in Northern California?
Yes, he's got them in Oregon and here in California as well. But
because Chris and I are going to be in San Diego beginning of July, and that
he doesn't have one that far down, but hopefully he will eventually. But Yeah, it's fantastic food.
It'd do
It's,
well. Something like that would
oh
do
yeah,
well, particularly in Oceanside,
Yeah,
yeah,
for
which
for
has,
sure.
sure.
again, a large Polynesian population.
Yeah,
And you know, the Polynesians are just the most beautiful people internally out, as are the Asians, because
hmm,
I was fortunate enough, you know, like everybody else, you know, a lot of the island. I lived in Kailua in you know, on Oahu, and in fact, Dylan just got back, you know, a while ago from their honeymoon. They went to Oahu, and they drove by past all the old haunts, and I went to Saint Anthony School in Kailua as a kid, and it's a Catholic school, nuns, etc. And my dad was stationed at Kaneohe Marine Corps Air Station. So, but one of the things I went to the very first hukilau, which is a luau, and I'm going to date myself, but 1965 in Laea, across from the PCC when it was first opening. So it was
very
great.
cool.
I had a great childhood on that side.
Absolutely. It sounds like, and you've been all over the world, and here you are on the lab, and we're happy to have you, and John as
Happy
well.
to be
Thank you
here.
guys. Thank you guys for your time. We're gonna talk, you know, the Nancy Guthrie case, that sort of, you know, little drips and drabs of information, you know, have been coming out, and people reporting more confidently on these quote unquote ransom notes, and then, you know, Harvey from TMZ, God bless him. I mean, I don't know, you know, it's so difficult to know what's real, what's fake. You know,
What's being done to gin up ratings?
yeah, that too. And I mean, I'm surprised. I'm okay. First of all, I'm not surprised, but I thought that he was done some months ago reporting these, as that's what he said, that he was no longer going to report these. And it's like the third day in a row now, that or third or fourth day, where he has had contact with somebody initially that got a hold of him. And you know, it sort of feels like this Kalela guy, you know, but you know, I don't know, what do you make of this, John? Do you think there's any validity to the messages that are being exchanged here? And to put yourself, he claims, and this is what he claims, that the FBI is close to finding out who this person is, because he wanted to pay the Bitcoin and do what he said was make a documentary about it or something along those lines. And the FBI told him not to do it. So he's not doing it. But he was said that he was willing to pay it. You know, I mean, do you put any stock into any of this?
I don't, in large measure, because if in fact this was a real lead, the FBI would pay the money. If this communication is such that there's an indication that this person wants to trade information for money, they would do it. But again, we don't know that any of this, and let me stress, I'm not saying that anybody is lying, okay? But it is the internet.
It is.
And this is a story that there are people who are looking for new and fresh ways to re-energize the story. And I've got to believe that if the FBI felt this was a genuine feeler, they would go ahead and pursue it. But we don't even know that this communication is in any way connected with the suspects. We just don't know this. So let's just put me in the camp of doubting Thomas, and I will have to see more to make me, and I would have to see it come from a source that there is not um, a benefit being generated as a consequence of the information, I guess is the best way to put it.
Yeah. Well, Chris, it goes even so it's going even further than this now. This person is now saying, "Hey, I got a cell phone buried with all this information on it. There's video of the captors with Nancy, and for one small little Bitcoin, which is a little less than $60,000, which
one thin wafer mint."
yeah, which makes no sense to me, because I think that if this person had nothing to do with it and they wanted to cash in, there's a cool $1.2 million
There you have it.
waiting to be collected. And this is not an FBI. This is not an FBI reward. This comes straight from the family. So you wouldn't have all this red tape that moving $1 million is not a super easy thing to do personally, from person to person. It can be done, but it takes a little bit of time, and I'm actually really looking forward to on Wednesday talking a little bit more about Bitcoin. I really look forward to that, but what do you make of this? Do you think it's all a hoax, hooey, or what do you think?
Well, at this point, I think it's, very problematic. Like John was saying, I mean, first of all, if you have all of this knowledge, intimate knowledge about, pictures of Nancy and video of Nancy, you've got a phone now that has everything, Nancy Guthrie on it. And, if Harvey Levin wants to make a video or whatever, first of all, the FBI can't stop him.
They cannot. That's true. They can't stop him, but he's saying he won't do anything without their blessing. That's what he's saying.
Well,
by the way,
what's he doing now?
Well, I was going to say, what a caring, strong, moral man he is.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's like, how do I put the cardboard picture up there for the victim and then make, money off of it? What's that all about?
He wants to make it. He wants to make, I think the documentary is maybe to recoup the funds that they pay, but I don't, Harvey.
Yeah, that's what it is, right?
TMZ pays tens of thousands of dollars for photographs.
They pay more. They pay more than that.
Yeah. So it's like, pay the money if you feel that strong about it. Get your camera crew and watch it disappear.
I think it's a teaser. I think it actually is, because what you're saying is, well, I would pay the money, but the FBI has told me not to. But let's speculate about it. The reality is if this person actually has this phone with all of the information available, why are they dickering over chump change of $60K when there's 1.2 million sitting on the table?
Yeah. Well, you got an 84-year-old woman out there, and your friend, your family friend, i.e. another celebrity, is suffering. Why does he continue to make her suffer on a daily basis? Pay the damn money if you've got it. And if you think, you're onto something here, then fine. You can do it. The FBI can't stop you, number one. And if it's $60,000, then guess what? You're going to write it off at tax time anyway.
Exactly. And you can also come to a payday if you're the one that solves the case.
Yeah, he'll get an Emmy and an Oscar on his documentary. Just make it happen. I mean,
it's just more sizzle. It is bacon frying in the other room so you can smell it and pay attention to it.
Yep.
But there's got to be some steak at some point after the sizzle.
Well, what?
Yep.
So what he's claiming is that the FBI is looking hard at this guy, he doesn't understand if it's fake or if it's false, what's going on here, and he says that it could be, and I sort of lean towards that as well, but he's basically saying that why is the FBI after this person? Well, I think it's because he's probably Harvey himself. TMZ has made him a high profile person by reporting on this nonstop. Every letter they get, every ransom or demand that they get, what this person is doing, essentially, whoever's doing it, it's illegal what they're doing.
Yeah.
If they have information that could lead to, an arrest of the people who are responsible for taking Nancy Guthrie out of her home, and are teasing to give the information for money, it's against the law to do that. I mean, we've already seen it with one person that has been
yes, who's going to be pleading guilty here. The thing about it is, the other thing is we only have his word that the FBI is chasing. Now, Chris and I have actually worked with the FBI, and you would actually get an Egyptian mummy to say something sooner than you will get the feds to say anything. Do you actually think that federal agents are telling this guy, yeah, we're looking hard at him? That would be so beyond the pale for as far as our experiences with federal agents.
Yeah.
So
information goes one way.
Yeah, you don't, I mean, they just don't. There are several coarse jokes that I won't share with your audience about the FBI and information, but the notion that they're looking hard at him, where's he getting that information? And if he claims it's from the Bureau, that would run counter to our experience.
Well, he says that he has had a liaison from the FBI that they've worked with, and that when it was his idea to pay this Bitcoin to see where it led, and that essentially he was ghosted by the liaison. The guy never returned his call, hasn't returned his calls, and basically they told him to stand down, that they think that they're getting close to finding out who it is. I personally
let's play this out. Let me get this right.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry,
Okay.
I tried to make it through it without.
And
Chuckle.
1, 2, 3, action. Okay. Hey, got another letter. And cut. Commercial. Okay, we're back. Our liaison has ghosted us. And cut. Back to another commercial. He made more in commercials than he would just paying the doggone. What is Bitcoin worth today? 40 grand. What's the valuation?
It's right under 60,000.
Today's under 60.
Yeah.
Okay, so wait till it hits 40, and then drop it. Give it to him. You'll make it in a commercial.
Exactly. You'll make it. And if they were the ones to actually come forward and say, we have the information to solve this case, it would be a bonanza for them. So, but the notion to me that he has a mole, like in the FBI, a liaison, let's call him a mole. If the Bureau actually thought that they had a mole interacting with TMZ, they would find out who that was, and that person would probably be assigned to the office on Guam. So, the reality is they're very security conscious. You don't get leaks from the FBI. And so the notion that now, you know what? If it's all actually true, then all right, I will admit I was wrong, and bow. If I can find a crow out here on the road, I will eat it. But the but it just sounds, from our experience, extremely improbable.
Now, and
Ain't
you
it
have to,
possible?
you have to measure that against where we worked. Okay, we had the largest military installation on the West Coast, Camp Pendleton. Over 50,000 Marines, the first Marine Division. They had CID and the FBI, that is federal property,
And NIS.
and NIS, right, and NCIS. And so you got to think we worked with these federal guys all the time, not just a few times. We had 50,000 Marines. Whenever a Marine got killed, guess what? We're briefing somebody on Camp Pendleton, either the commanding general's office, or CID or NCIS, a Fed or whatever. We were talking to all of them. Okay, and by the way, they're all federal agencies, right? NCIS is a federal agency. Okay, FBI is a federal agency, and they're both law enforcement agencies. We also had a Coast Guard station. Okay, that's a federal agency. So anytime something happened, we were liaison with these people all day long. Okay, all day. Okay, and so this is like, oh, the rules haven't changed last time I checked. Okay, and to think that this is one of the largest kidnapping cases ever in publicity, outside of, again, I keep saying the Lindbergh baby.
Well, I think that
The kidnapping of Frank Sinatra Jr. That
was a big one too. Yeah.
Well, it certainly is taking its place in the lore of kidnapping, high profile kidnappings, big time, no question.
Yeah, and so and we worked one of the largest child kidnappings in the country. We keep talking about Leticia Hernandez, which they tried taking federally. Okay, I don't know why our agency ever gave in to that wind, but
sterling leadership.
It was above my pay grade. But that said, we had, I worked with, well, I'm not going to name any names, but there was a whole terminology for what the locals think and what the feds think. And we all think differently, by the way. Okay. We think differently because we do it all day long, and they do it when something, happens on a federal facility, which they don't even respond to domestic violence cases. Okay. On Camp Pendleton, for an example, the MPs handle it. And then if it's something, that's going to turn into a criminal thing, then NCIS comes in, or the CID takes over, right? Which is a military arm of investigations. So this idea that somehow, you have a three-letter agency and everybody goes, oh, the FBI, they have all knowledge, all people, all this, Well, we used to say that the FBI stands for fan belt inspectors.
Or famous but incompetent.
Famous but incompetent. They're a bunch of lawyers with, guns. That's a scary proposition, because remember, in order to get in the FBI, you had to have a bachelor's degree, and it had to be an accounting degree, or you had to be a lawyer. Okay. So basically they're bean counters. Okay. But somehow everybody around the world, you say FBI, which there are, like 500,000 of them now retired, but somehow they have all the knowledge, but they've never stood over a dead body, a lot of them, but somehow they, got the three letters behind their name. So therefore they know more than the locals. But quite frankly, the locals are a lot smarter, and they know a lot more because they do it. They do it. They're out there doing it every single day. And go ahead.
You haven't lived until we're going back to the 80s here. Bank robberies. The FBI investigates bank robberies. But you haven't lived until you're at a bank robbery And we arrived first because they would be driving up from San Diego. And so we'd be standing in the bank. We'd have cops searching for suspects. We'd have our CSIs processing the scene. And Frick and Frack would come in their Brooks Brothers suits. And they all lower their voices and they go, Agent Kelly, FBI, Agent Smith, FBI, and then they would go, have you looked for witnesses? And you'd just stare at them and go, man, that never would have occurred to us. Witnesses? And, looking for evidence. And, well, our guy's already doing it. And then you'd go, well, thank goodness the G-men are here. And they don't like being called G-men. Although I've got to say, in fairness, there was an old FBI agent, an old Hoover man from the San Diego office, Jack Kelly.
Jack was great.
Jack was gold. And he would tell these youngsters, the locals, they actually know what they're doing, because we were arresting people with, we were arresting gunmen all the time. So there are certain things the FBI does really well.
And you know what they used to do, Josh, in the police academy years ago? They would show films of a huge FBI shootout in Florida.
Oh, yeah.
You can look it up. Okay. That was the training film for the police academies in the locals of what not to do. Okay. They used the FBI shootout as training films.
Yes.
Do the math.
Yeah, don't do it this way. We had a question here from one of your viewers, wanted to know what G-man was. And G-man was a term that emerged out of the 1930s. And it is during the era when Melvin Purvis was hunting gangsters. And there's the apocryphal story of Machine Gun Kelly being arrested, and as the FBI closed in, the guy said, "Don't shoot, G-man," and Machine Gun Kelly was a third-rate bank robber. When in reality, what actually happened, that story was invented whole cloth by J. Edgar Hoover. Machine Gun Kelly's actual arrest was done by two New Orleans detectives, police detectives. And when they burst in the room, he said, "I've been waiting for you guys, I give." But when the FBI makes their federal arrest, they then go and say, the FBI made the arrest. And this story came out of a deliberately and invented mythos for J. Edgar Hoover. So G-man means government man, and they don't like being called that.
If you look at the Miami 1986 FBI shootout, okay, John and I were both on the job at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The equivalent to that was what they called the Norco shootout. Okay. Mm-hmm. But this was the bloodiest shootout in FBI history. And the locals, they used that shootout as a training film to not do what the FBI did. Okay. Because they lost agents in that situation. And then, of course, behind that, you have, all these other things that took, Ruby Ridge, Waco, all these other things that, law enforcement, from our perspective anyway, at least mine, okay, because I don't get very impressed with three-letter agencies. It's just part of my personality because I've worked alongside them.
Individual agents. And Chris mentioned something that your viewers might be interested in knowing about. And I referenced it in one of my books. I was working the day of the narco bank robbery, not during the bank robbery. For any of you who, you might Google this and just look up the narco bank robbery. And it was an extended gun battle. The suspects fired in excess of 2,000 rounds. As Riverside County Sheriff's deputies, they shot down a police helicopter. It's the biggest police shootout that nobody's ever heard of. And I knew a number of the deputies who were involved. Riverside County was only 400 deputies, but and then look up the Miami shootout. And so, but I guess we've wandered a little far afield, but
I mean, we did wander, and I apologize, but
no, it's all right.
It's
Go
go
ahead.
ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, it goes back to understanding the mindset of, how these things all connect. Okay, in terms of when Harvey Levin says, "Yeah, I've got an FBI liaison," probably not. And then they want me to hold off, probably not, because they can't tell you what to do, and if they can't tell the family to not pay or pay a ransom, you think they're going to tell TMZ, don't pay $60,000 because we think we may know who this guy is? Well, first of all, they're not going to tell him we know who the guy is, so that he can put it on TMZ and say, the FBI says they may be onto this guy. Okay. Anyway, that's it.
Yeah. So Nanos was also asked about this as well. And he kind of chalks it up to, he thinks everything's kind of a fraud and a scam. He seems to almost take nothing, I wouldn't say serious about the case, but he seems to dismiss almost everything that ever comes in. And unfortunately, in this case, I think I probably agree with him that it's more of a sham and that they're trying to get over, because I think what happens is once this person is paid the one Bitcoin, you never hear from them again. I mean, that's what's going to happen. I said this on X the other day. It almost might be worth just paying this guy $60,000 to shut up and go away forever. Because, one of two, it's one of two things. He's full of crap, or two, he's so involved that he can't turn it in for the 1.2, and that he's trying to salvage some sort of money out of the situation. If it was ever truly a ransom situation to start, we still don't even really understand or know that. But in these ransom notes that they were talking about, where now more people are reporting that in this second ransom note that the FBI does believe that there's some credibility to him, because you saw Savannah and her brother and sister out on social media saying, look, we understand, seemingly responding to we killed your mother, or your mother died on accident. And we didn't mean to do it. This really compassionate letter that everybody seems to be reporting on now, one of the things that makes them think that it's real is that the Apple Watch
that makes
placement,
who think it's real?
The FBI.
Who says that? Did the FBI say it was real?
No, this is being reported by, I think it was Henry Blum.
Okay, well, yeah.
Howard Blum.
Okay, so a crime guy who's going to write a book thinks it's real.
No, he's saying that this is from his sources. Everybody has sources. He's saying that the reason that
Peter Pan can fly. Yeah. Go ahead.
No, I agree. Let me finish before
American Airways stock. I can tell you.
Let me finish before you throw cold water on it.
Go ahead.
But they're saying that because of the Apple Watch and because of this is the one that I don't get, and this is what makes me. I'd like to hear your thoughts on it. But they said that they described accurately what she was wearing. But the only person that could actually know what Miss Nancy Guthrie was wearing would be Nancy, because when she was dropped off, I doubt that she was wearing pajamas. but they now claim that in this note, this letter, that she was in her pajamas.
Well, that's a safe assumption.
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting thought, right? At 2:30 in the morning, and this idea of my sources and all these other people, yada yada. Didn't he just write a book on Koberger?
Yeah, he's gotten some stuff wrong before, for sure.
Yeah, there's a lot wrong in that book, but
No, he's definitely gotten some stuff wrong, no question.
He's like TMZ, he sold a lot of books. Everybody jumped on it, and now he's back. He's going to write another one. Here comes the next one. Okay, but what we have not heard is anybody from the FBI come to the podium and say, "Hey, by the way, Nancy Guthrie is in her pajamas at 2:30 in the morning," and then you have a family member who says, "Well, we believe they're yada yada." Okay, well, yeah, but did the FBI come out and tell them? Did they sit down and say with them, okay, that these notes are legit? No. Do you have the press conference? You can cue it up. Where the FBI was asked that exact question. What do you think about the notes? You know how he answered it, the SAC? He says, "We take all things under consideration." That's how you answer it. That's how you answer it. That's a good answer. Because basically what that answer means is it could be fake or it could be real. We don't know yet. And you don't go to the family and you sit down with them and say, "Okay, everybody sit down. Yeah. Okay, these are real notes." Those conversations don't happen behind the scenes.
Right.
To where it then goes on, the Today Show, because every messaging, the suspect is listening and watching and reacting. And that is hostage negotiations 101. Okay. That you don't sit down with the family and say, "Okay, here's the messaging I need you to, we're going to help you write this with the behavior science unit, the BAU." Okay. Maybe. I'm not convinced that they wrote, other than the fact that they probably gave them some pointers and some ideas about putting that note together, where they read it to the public, where they're going to ask for a proof of life. Okay. Well, that's hostage negotiations 101 too. Okay. There's a whole, see these books back here?
Yeah.
2 of those books are hostage negotiations. Okay. John and I were both, actually, he was a supervisor in one of the teams. I was on the other team with Tom Bussey. But we had worked multiple times together as hostage negotiators, by the way. People actually holding guns.
Secondary, yes, we did.
Yeah. People actually holding guns on other people. And we talked them out of the situation. Go figure, right? With my chit chat. Okay. So we actually have done it. And so it's this idea that says, okay, if I say something stupid or something wrong, okay, what's going to happen? And that's why I say the word okay all the time. What is okay? Okay. The word okay is an affirming, word. You'll be surprised how many times you sit with a suspect who says, "Yeah, I blew the guy's head off." And you sit there and go, "Okay, then what happened?" "Well, then I shot the other guy." "All right. Okay. Then what happened?" You see where that can go? Next thing you know, you got 50 crimes in 15 minutes sitting on the counter.
Exactly. It's a form of verbal mirroring. And what we're doing is also, for a lot of people, they are concerned that cops are going to be horrified. And by saying okay, you're not saying you agree with the event, but you are reaffirming to them that they're in a safe environment to talk.
Just kind of disarming them of.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, that is You remain calm throughout. I mean, we've seen stuff on the TV shows and movie representations of hostage negotiations, and it's dramatic, but it's not really the way it works.
Yeah, and we've both been through FBI's, advanced hostage negotiations courses, so this is not new. The circumstances are different because you're dealing with somebody anonymously. You're not even they're not even negotiating with anybody.
Yeah, but do you think do you really think though that the Guthrie family would have responded to that second note without any sort of look? We don't have any proof that the FBI was involved, but do you think that they would have done that without FBI cooperation? Saying,
No, I think the FBI said,
because
hey,
I think they think
nothing to lose.
Yeah.
But then make sure you read what we're going to help you put together. It's a combo plate.
And I'm not certain they stayed on script. What do you think, Chris?
I agree. I think they gave them some bullet points, and they went, just like John said, they went off script, because the FBI would not have said, okay, your salutation and your introduction is going to be mama. Okay. No, the feds would not. I can tell you, John and I have sat next to people on the phone with people who have done really crazy stuff. Okay. In fact, I have a commendation from this guy right down here for talking a guy out of a hand grenade. All right. If he would have said, okay, let's start with mama. Okay. Right. Do you see how that's even though it's an endearing situation, it's an endearing word for the victim. The suspect doesn't care about the victim.
Yeah, this whole nonsense of, make the victim they wouldn't be holding a gun on people if they were capable of that level of empathy. Self-preservation is what you sell.
Your whole clarity of focus is at the suspects. Is there a sense of empathy? Is there a sense of, can we even get to a place where we can talk to this person? Can we get there first? And then once we get to that place of talking to the person, that letter is read to their mother. And then you see it kind of shifting a little bit, where it goes back to this idea of, well, you need to get to know her. She's, and they lay out they personalize. They're trying to personalize the victim to the suspect. All right. But before you can even do that, you have to take into account the BAU is sitting there going, okay, what do we have? Well, we've got somebody willing to come through the door at 2:30 in the morning with a gun and beat the crap out of an 84-year-old woman where there's blood on the porch.
Right.
Okay.
And then drag her out into the cold desert night. These are what we call clues that we're not looking at an Albert Schweitzer sort of figure. And by the way, thank you, David. I'm glad you like the book.
And let me just clarify something. Nobody up here is saying that the FBI is incompetent. That's not what was said. We're saying that there's so many agents, and like in every agency, there are terrible agents that don't know what they're doing, and the FBI is no exception to that. There are some of the best agents in the world that work for the FBI as well. They also have the best resources of most anybody in the world. Nobody's saying that the FBI is incompetent. So if anybody is suggesting that that's what's being said, you're wrong. So you didn't take.
Well, I think that's
accurately.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying they're all incompetent. I'm saying there's probably 70% of them are dumb.
I don't know if incompetent is the word. The thing is this: many of them operate in an office environment.
Right.
Many of their investigations are financial crimes, they're documentary crimes,
White collar.
And when they get into the arena of street enforcement, Many of them lack the experience that your average cop in even a medium-sized city has with dealing with offenders, dealing with violent offenders, and dealing with people who are committing crimes. So I don't think it's a case of being incompetent. It's a case of let's turn it around. You could say I'm incompetent if you stuck me into a white collar crime unit.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
just say, give me some crayons and turn the paper over, and I'll draw pictures, because I can't do white collar crime. So it's an idea of fitting the square peg into the round hole, and vice versa.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
you've got to think about, you know, there are probably 3 out of 10 that are great people, and they're good cops, and they get it done. But you got to also be honest and look at and go, you know, first of all, you need to ask yourself a question: who's ever made that comment? How many domestic violence calls do FBI agents respond to?
None.
Though they might in Alaska on a military base because it's federal property. I don't know. But in America, okay, just in Texas alone, do you know there are over 500 counties, 500 sheriffs in Texas alone? How many of those sheriff's departments respond to domestic violence calls? Every one of them. Tens of thousands of them. How many FBI agents respond to a domestic violence call in Texas? The answer is 0.
So why?
So
So
now,
why?
are we to say that the FBI who shows up knows more about domestic violence?
No,
That's
they're
the
not trained.
problem.
They're not trained for that.
Well, that's the problem.
The arena of specialized knowledge.
It's the perception of everybody says, well, how dare you insult the FBI? I'm not insulting all of the FBI. I'm insulting the concept of this idea that says they know all things. They don't. Okay, period. They don't walk on water. Just like I'm not an accountant. My degree is not in accounting. Okay. And so it's as simple as that. That's all I'm saying. And, you know, folks have to realize that we worked in a town that had the largest military installation in the United States in terms of the first, you know, Camp Pendleton. We had 50,000 Marines. And guess what? The FBI didn't work a single crime out in our town. When there were homicides in our town, the FBI didn't show up. Never have and never will. But am I to sit here and say, yeah, they know more than I do about homicides in Oceanside? The answer is no. And guess what? I never worked a homicide on Camp Pendleton.
So why would the FBI be involved in this at all?
Because they have resources. And that's why Nonads, who doesn't like them, and unlike, you know, what I'm saying here, I like the FBI because they have a lot of resources. But just like Nano said in the press conference, and let's go back to his press conferences where they stepped up and they said, this is the role of the Federal Bureau of Investigations. They put it out there. I didn't put it out there. They put it out there. This is our role. What did Kash Patel say? Well, we were shut out for 4 days and we had resources. And what they come to the table with, they come to the table with evidence resources, cellular forensics resources, a lot of manpower that you can put out quickly. All right. And that's what they come to the table with. That's a good thing. And you just need to know when to use it. But you notice the FBI is not running this investigation.
No, they certainly are not.
So we said that the day it happened. If you go back and watch one of John and I, and you know, we were the very first people that said to the world on the internet, Cantankerous Chris, okay, said to the world, There are two trains here. There's a federal train and a state train. Unless there's something that's going to cross over, to make this a federal train, then unfortunately we have to live with, nonads. That was the whole reason we started looking at Nanos, to see what his background was, to make sure that it didn't turn into this, cluster.
Yeah.
Right or wrong, John?
Oh, exactly. And we discussed this recently, in fact, last night, that the ball seems to have been completely dropped. Why are there not flyers being circulated? Why has seemingly we're no longer looking for porch guy? Why is there no longer an active effort? Chris covered it on his trip to Tucson. Why are they not out among the people who might be the environment the porch guy emerged from? Why are they not out talking to people? Because here's the thing. The sheriff has indicated that he believes that data and DNA are going to solve this case. Here's a big shocker. We didn't have data or DNA back in the day, and you know what? We solved most of our murders. Detectives needed to be out encouraging people to remember things and perhaps identify people.
Let me get
free cop work done.
And let me dovetail into what John's saying. And the public can go out and figure this out. Let's just use the Michael Vaughn case as a perfect example. 5-year-old little boy disappears out of Fruitland, Idaho. The FBI was there with Fruitland PD, working with them for almost a year and a half, just about, right? A year, I think. A whole year. You know what their conclusion was? This is the FBI now. He's a walk away. He may have fallen into the Snake River. We have no idea where he's at. You'll never find him. See you guys later. The FBI left Fruitland Police Department because they were done. They had come to their decisions and their conclusions. Guess who the chief, or guess who the mother got hold of? The mother got hold of this guy right here. That mother then called the Cold Case Foundation. We went and met with Fruitland Police Department. A gentleman has just been bound over for murder of Michael Vaughn. What, 2 months ago, Josh?
Yeah, about 2.5. Yeah.
It went from a walkaway opinion from the FBI to a murder from Fruitland PD. So here's my question. When I say they're dumb, I stand on solid ground. I'm not saying all of them. I'm just saying they do things sometimes where they lose critical thinking skills. And this goes back to what John just said. And let me take it a step further. Wasn't the FBI also in the Idaho 4 case? And weren't they there all over the place, but Moscow PD said, no, we got this. Asking for a friend. And outside of, those kind of things like that, on a day-to-day, kick the bushes, that kind of thing, all right? They're great at a lot of resources. They're great at it. But what else? In the Murdoch case, you notice it was the sled South Carolina Law Enforcement Division that solved Murdoch. You didn't see an FBI agent sitting in the car with Murdoch.
No, it was SLED.
That was correct. Well, what did the FBI do? They came in with their cellular analysis teams, CAS teams, who came in with the tools and that type of expertise. That's what they're good at. But sitting there with Murdoch in the car and talking to this guy about, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, that was SLED. That was all SLED. And so don't get confused when you say the FBI, or don't get confused when we say, well, the FBI is on the scene. Well, yeah. And what's the point? Maybe, Tenanos one piece of Tenanos is when he says, look, we can solve this stuff. Well, maybe that's a piece of the puzzle. I will still criticize him because they stripped down the experienced homicide guys. But I think maybe now he's learned a lesson. And by the way, he's dumb too. I'll say that straight up. And I'm sure he thinks I'm stupid, which is fine. I could care less. Okay. However, in this situation, don't get caught up because you hear 3-letter agencies or see it on the back of their shirts. Don't get caught up in that stuff. Because it's back to the fundamentals, the simplicity, because when you do that, you take a guy like Blum, who's writing a book and said, well, the FBI said. Well, what did they say? What they say? You had Ashley Bamfield. Well, I have an FBI informant. Who said? What did he say? And that's what I mean by when I say, the elevator doesn't go to the top floor. It's ironic. It's ironic. John knows me. He knows how I work. He knows how I think. And he knows also what my nickname was. My nickname was the Vault, which is ironic. People in the FBI call themselves that now, after I've been called that, since about 1989. Okay. Long before some people were even in the job.
Pushing 40 years.
Yeah. I mean, that's been my nickname for 40 years. And all of a sudden, somebody else is the Vault. Okay. That's a good thing. But if we look forward and push forward in terms of thought process, what's lacking with this generation right now of law enforcement officers? They do not have the ability to think outside of the box because Google didn't tell them. The science hasn't told them. To John's point, we solved many murders. We didn't have technology. We didn't have, what was DNA at the time when we started on the streets and doing police work. What we had, we had ABO blood typing, we had fingerprints, we had hair, and you'd get these lab reports back that say the hair is consistent with, this, and that.
Yeah, it's the same thing they did with fibers as well. It's like, consistency was, there's no exact matching and stuff like that. But I agree that one of the major problems that I think that they're going to end up having in this case is relying on DNA. I think that Nanos has all of his eggs in that basket. That's what the FBI does is work, and they're very good at it. But I think that Nanos is kind of sitting back, waiting for that big break to come. And I just don't think it is. I don't think they're going to get it. I don't know. I just don't think that they're going to be able to. I don't think they're going to come up with what they think they're going to come up with for some reason. I don't know why.
John and I have talked about this extensively behind the scenes. And if folks want to see, you can go back to the very first week of the videos that we did on my channel. And I'm here to tell you, everything that we said has already occurred. It's happening. And that wasn't because of, hey, look at those guys. They know this. They don't. No, we don't. We're fluid like everybody else. But we've seen enough to where you go, you know what? That's not going to work out what we're probably seeing, to see where it goes. And, if you look at Nonads as an example, this is a guy that just yesterday, he's on the radio, right? Comparing, us YouTubers as if we're dinosaurs that, don't exist to the mainstream media. Well, here's a call coming in. People were just laid off. A lot of them.
Yeah, but he doesn't like you because you're on his ass.
Well, I don't care about him. I care about Nancy Guthrie. And you're right. He probably doesn't. And that's okay. I'm good with that. Because if some of the thoughts and ideas that John and I and you and others can maybe kick something loose, maybe there's an investigator out there that's listening going, hey, I didn't consider that. Well, guess what? Let that person do what that person needs to do. And then they can have all the glory. I could care less about that. But if it takes them to Nancy Guthrie, that's a win.
Sure.
That's a win.
No, you're right about that. Yeah. Can we pivot here? I want to know a little bit, your show yesterday. Was it? Yeah, it was yesterday. You're talking about the district attorney, correct?
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about what you guys found out there? I know that's probably a lot of people already heard it, but this is the person that's going to be trying the case, and tell me a little bit what you uncovered there.
Well, somebody from her office will try the case if it's a homicide case and they can't get a federal nexus to it. Let's say this Kallela guy is a nexus from California to, whatever, Tommaso or Annie. Let's pretend that this guy knows more than what they're letting out right now. Which again was one of the very first things we talked about, John and I and others on the panel, that said, well, that doesn't look right. DLR, right? That's what we call it. Doesn't look right. And when I read the affidavit, there's like a 9-second phone call, but they won't say who that's to. Okay. However, there's also, the text messages, and this is all documented. You can go back 5 months ago. We talked about this. And we all thought, wow, let's put that up on the board. That looks weird. That one's not connecting here. What's the story? Because at the time, and if now we take these notes into consideration, remember the notes went to, KOLD, okay, the news station. I thought it was always weird why it didn't go to KVOA, because if you want the most impact, KVOA is where Savannah used to work. It's an NBC affiliate. Well, if you really want to communicate with Savannah and the family, send it to KVOA. Why are you sending it to the competitors of where Savannah used to work? That made no sense to me and John and others in the very beginning. Made no sense. And so when you think about that piece of the note, just that in of itself, and then you push that forward, and now you have an entertainment company that, well, we're not getting the news here. Okay, well, why don't you send it to the right news station, number one, or better yet, send it to Savannah or Annie or Tommaso or, Cameron, who are actually the victim's family. Send it to them. You'll get a response. Trust me. And that never happened. So now we are where we are. And so that's what kind of kicked open this idea that said, let's look at the big picture here and see who all the players are. And we started looking at the sheriff. We looked at the, his number 2 guy, both of them, by the way, who have a really fascinating background. One of the guys had to change his name, to protect the innocents. Okay. And, the sheriff, hey, when I get a chance, I'll just take my gun to the airport and check it in through TSA. Okay.
Yeah,
and then
they can do that.
Then they can flag me and they can read me Miranda. Go figure. Okay, that piece of the puzzle. And so now we thought, okay, that these Legos are building a really clear picture here. Let's see who the next one is. And the next one is the DA. So as we started looking into to her, we discovered, oh, she's got 22 ethics violations, and she doesn't want anybody knowing about them. So I'll break bread with the bar in Arizona and just hide it. And so that's what she's done. And so nobody knows what the totality of the allegations were, but we definitely know the magic word of ethics. And it just so happens that, the news agencies circled the wagons around her and everybody held hands and sang Kumbaya. Nothing to see here, move along. And they've done the exact same thing with Nanos, with the sheriff and his underlings. Well, John pointed out last night, that has a rippling effect down through a law enforcement agency. When you see that your sheriff was a criminal early on in terms of given an opportunity, almost indicted by a grand jury. However,
on a RICO case, right?
Well, that's here in Arizona. We're just talking about his Texas stuff.
We're talking about the assault under color of authority.
Yeah, well, with the mag light.
Yeah, he beat the crap out of a guy, put a guy in the ICU unit. I mean, do the math. Any other law enforcement agency, you would have been in custody. You'd be in custody.
Yeah, I mean, you should be.
Of course you should be.
You can't just beat people with mag lights when they're in custody. You can't beat them with that in general, but
I'd have given him the courtesy of letting him take his uniform shirt off and gun belt before he went to jail, but that would have been it. You don't put somebody, that's thug behavior. And when you have a person in charge of an organization with that background, that person lacks moral authority to lay down the ethics to the people beneath him. So it's flawed.
And that's a great way to put it, John. I mean, and to dovetail into what John just said, there's no moral clarity as well. There's no moral clarity there. And so, and it extends right to the guy he hired who is in the criminal investigations division. He hired somebody just like himself, like the mirroring effect that John was talking about earlier. He put a guy over this investigation that he already lost his job as a sheriff. And it was so bad, he had to come back with a new name. He had to change his identity.
I've never heard of anything like that before.
Is that moral clarity? Now, the troops down on the bottom, right, are looking up going, let me get this right. These are our bosses. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's go start beating people. Let's go do this. Let's go do that.
Right.
Okay. We're good to go here. Now, I'm not saying that's happening with the deputies or anything. I'm not inferring that at all. I'm just saying if the leadership is projecting that, don't be surprised when you have some individuals who go rogue underneath you. And don't be surprised if they don't figure out a way to change their names within the agency to protect themselves from civil rights lawsuits and violations and under the color of authority all over the place. Don't be surprised, because, you know, that's the tone that's been set. And so we started looking at that, and the third piece of this was, oh my gosh. So is the DA. It's like, holy crap, you can't make this stuff up. It's got all the milk of you know, another Howard Bloom book. You know, we'll see what's going to happen. Does that make sense?
So wait, so are you saying that the district attorney is looking at who?
What do you mean?
So you and Karen have been looking into
The
the
DA.
sheriff.
Right.
Oh, and the DA. Who's looking into the DA?
Yeah, exactly. Santa Claus. Nobody. The Sentinel did a piece on it in Arizona, but they got hammered because, you know, they're the locals, and, you know, you've got everybody circling the wagons. You've got, yeah, I mean, look at this show that this guy was just on. You got a guy in there who, you know, they wanted to defund the police. The guy wrote hundreds, you know, not hundreds, but a lot of stories. It's this dividing line of, you know, you're either on this side or you're on that side. It's either you're a red or you're a blue. We've now categorized ourselves in the human condition as a color based on our political aspirations.
Yeah.
You know, God doesn't see in color. I haven't figured out why we do.
Let me read this really quick. Three odd things. Maybe the plan. PG's performance, apology letter, and using TMZ, all support an elimination. Letter never intended to show proof of life, was to show proof of no life. TMZ made it public for a death certificate. It's possible, but, you know, you're not going to get a death certificate without having proof of death either. You know, I mean, you're going to, what does that take? Like 7 years or something like that? 5 to 7 years?
No, not necessarily.
I mean, you can get a judge to put special circumstances, but I mean, they wouldn't do, I mean, would they do that without an unsolved case?
Well, right now, what is it?
It's an investigation.
Yeah, but what kind?
I don't know.
You see, that's a mixed bag of nuts. A civil attorney could go in and argue, say, Your Honor, she walked away. And then there has to be a counter argument from a criminal side that says, no, Your Honor, there's suspicious circumstances here, but we can assume that she may be deceased because there's blood on the porch. So it's left up to the lawyers. They all start going into court. Dale Warner tried it in Dee's case. Remember, she was declared. Billy and I put a package together and handed it to the civil attorneys. Remember, we did a whole show on that.
Yeah, I remember.
With Billy. Okay. That guy's a genius. And we put it all together, handed it to them, and then they were able to take that into civil court where she was declared deceased, and that froze all the assets. So it could be a two-edged sword. If they go into court and try to declare her deceased, well then, you know, other folks could come in, other family members could come in and try to freeze the assets. And there's Meatloaf right back there.
You just feed that poor animal.
Was he eating something?
He's so funny. He looks like a meatloaf, doesn't he?
He kind of does. He looks like a little baked potato. He's coming over to you.
Oh, he is. He's coming underneath me right here. He's going to
Does he sit under your desk too?
Oh, yeah. He licks my feet. I mean, it's like, what the heck are you doing, dude? I love him to death, though.
He's trying to help you out.
Yeah. He's scenting off me. Yeah, could they declare her? Yeah. But, you know, it's going to be interesting to see what happens, because if they declare her deceased, then that means they're not looking for her anymore.
I'd argue they're not looking for her now.
Well, that's
Yeah,
what I was going to say. It doesn't feel like they've done. I don't know what they've done, but it doesn't feel like they've done much looking. It doesn't feel like they're still looking. And I don't know, man. I know they used. I know they did the sniffer thing at the beginning with the. They're trying to sniff out a. What was that? Her pacemaker. But
Oh, they use the electronic device to attempt to trace the remaining of the heart.
Yeah, right. So they did that, and that was sort of put out there. But other than that, I mean, there hasn't been much show of, like grid searching and things like that. If anything, they've really sort of discouraged it.
Well, they haven't sort of, Josh. They have discouraged, and during these 5 months, they have, in fact, I'm aware of 2 corpses that they've found, which tells me that there was no initial comprehensive search. I'm uncertain why that would be the case, why you wouldn't be searching unless, A, they felt they had reasonable information that she wasn't in the desert, or B, they had information they believed helped support the fact she was no longer alive.
Mm-hmm.
So you can look at that and say, all right, that might explain why they're not looking. What I don't understand is why we are not seeing a more comprehensive effort to find Porch Guy. Why is his visage not being plastered all over people have said, well, you can't put handbills up and you can't. Look, I'm not putting handbills up, for Billy's Garage Band at the local club. We're trying to find somebody who abducted an 84-year-old woman from her home in the middle of the night. That image should be being shown on commercials. It should be being handed out. They should have people in the jail. I mean, $1.2 million. As I said on Chris's show last night, I got somebody to give up a murderer for the cost of a package of Antonio E. Cleopatra cigars. $1.2 million is just incredible.
How much is that?
What, the cigars?
Yeah.
Well, $3.99. I got him the good cigars. I didn't get him Swisher Sweets. Okay, I got him good quality. Well, all right, as good as you were going to find at Jolly Time Liquor. And for the people here from Oceanside, they will recognize Jolly Time Liquor.
Oh, I love it. Now you know why I love this guy so much.
That is too.
Hysterical.
That is
John
just
is
too funny.
John is one of the smartest guys I've ever met, and
He really is smart.
and he just sits back, as you can tell, he's very humble, and there's like a yin and a yang between us. It's always been there, and this idea, now where they're looking. Here's what, and John and I have talked about this. This is what we would be doing right now. We'd be looking for the car. I wouldn't be looking for a body. You find the car, you'll get the body. Because cars are much easier or much harder to hide, and they're much easier to trace. So now if you think about this, the idea, yeah, meatloaf, I love it. The idea that the suspect can get rid of a car is much more difficult than, trying to find where she's located. But that car had to come into this neighborhood so many times, and there has to be film or something out there with this car on it somewhere. And somebody knows about that car. And so you beat the bushes with that face of porch guy and say, look, I'm looking for this guy. Have you seen this guy? And a lot of times, the street will say, well, what has he done? And you started off with the moment that question comes to you, you're not going to believe this. We think he's involved in taking an 84-year-old woman. I guarantee you, even the hardest, hardcore gangbanger, parolee, or anything, they'll, sometimes, and I'm just, hypothesizing here, but they'll go, what? Yeah. 84 years
that's
old.
old.
Man, that's messed up. And then you follow it up with, can I show you this picture of this dude? And they look at it, right? And then you follow it up with, if you have any information about this, there's 1.2 million bucks that's available. It could be yours. I.e., as John used to say, the price is right. Door number 1, 2, or 3, or let's make a deal. Okay, come
Or
and get.
chumming. You're chumming.
You're chumming.
For the fishermen out there, you're chumming.
Because in this concept, criminals don't like people that hurt children or old women. It's an unwritten rule. It's a code of conduct, believe it or not, even within the prison system. If you hurt a kid, they put you in protective custody, PC, for a reason. That's because, and if you're out on the street and you were locked up with the person that couldn't get to you, you're still in a lot of problems. You're taking a risk if you come across that guy that you were on the hole with. And so the street has a code of conduct. And if you don't understand how to operate within inside of that system as a law enforcement officer, well, then two things are going to happen. One, you're going to get hurt. And number two, you're going to lose respect that nobody will ever talk to you again. I get hammered all the time on social media. Why are you, hitching your wagons to this person or that person? I don't hitch my wagon to anybody. I treat people with respect. I don't care what they've done in the past. As long as they're not doing it now, then we're good to go. Well, they're not coming to my house for dinner, and I'm not going to their houses for dinner. And we all understand that principle. But I guarantee you, I can't tell you how many crime scenes, and John and I have both gone to, where you're witnesses in the middle of a vadio, okay, where they have to live with the people that just did the crime here, will come up to you on the side and say, hey, yeah, can I talk to you? And you walk over and go, hey, man, don't use my name or anything, Holmes. Okay, well, what's up? Chitter, chatter, chitter, chitter, chitter. And guess what? You have to honor that. You have to honor that. And it's one dot to the next dot to the next dot. Somebody knows what happened to Nancy Guthrie because she's no longer in that house. And that's where you should be pounding the streets. Going to, like John's, tell them what you said about going to the gun store, with the 14 pictures.
Oh, I'm drawing a blank on that, Chris.
Remember where, as if this guy had gone into a gun store to purchase.
Oh, yeah, the element of the investigation where they thought somebody had bought the gun from a gun shop. I'm sorry, that's just ludicrous. Hey, let me just before I'm about to commit this kidnapping and possibly unalive this poor woman, let me fill out a bunch of federal forms so I can get my name in the system. There's something else that Chris said that is extraordinarily important for conducting an investigation at this stage when you're dealing with these people, and that is your reputation on the streets. When you are out and you're dealing with the folks on the street, criminals, former criminals, gangbangers, we as cops in these cities have our own reputation. And if our reputation, my reputation was, as I was told, Mr. Lamb, you're a hard man, but you're firm and you're fair. Okay, I can live with that. I'm not going to give up somebody who has said, I need this to be, secret as I said this. But you have to earn that reputation. You start doing that when you're a blue suit pushing a black and white. And so that is how you can walk into situations and say, hey, the dude that got killed with the shotgun, who did it? When you walk into, a flop house at 3 a.m. and they know who you are. And I'm afraid that the current state of law enforcement doesn't encourage officers to stay long enough in a place where they can where they can actually get themselves embedded into the street culture. And by saying embedded, it means I'm not part of the street culture. But you just don't walk into an area like where Chris was near this Stevan Park. You just don't walk in there and you're going to get information. You've got to have your bona fides established well in advance.
Right.
Yeah. And that's where the patrol guys come in. That's where the patrol guys, that's where the, your GTF guys, gang task force guys. We had one of the best gang guys outside of LASD and LAPD in Southern California. His name is Ruben Sandoval. That guy used to train gang detectives in Southern California. Literally, he was the instructor. He'd go to these gang courses and he was the instructor. And you'd have people from agencies all over California in his classrooms because we had so many gangs in our town. Remember Camp Pendleton? If you were from a different state and you were a GD, gangster disciple, and you went into the Marine Corps, guess what town you ended up in? If you were part of the, Rolling 60s, 190s, Main Street, Grape, Hoover, you just go down the list. Okay. Guess whose town you ended up in? And when you think about that, you learn a lot. Ruben was amazing. We had a gang, it's called Pasole. Okay. It was like 5 generations deep. And you can pull them up on YouTube or on the web, Josh, if people wanted to see. Okay. These guys were ruthless. It's the first time in Southern California where a gang injunction was used to keep them off the streets from standing next to each other. In 1995, we had 25 homicides in their neighborhoods. Okay, where, just give you an idea of what that means, they were probably maybe 2 square miles.
Yeah, stacking the bodies up like cordwood.
And go ahead, Josh, you're muted.
I'm just yelling at my dog.
Oh, that's all right. Sorry. Anyway, and Ruben Sandoval, you'd get to a homicide scene, and if it was a vato or a homie that was down, the first guy, you'd pick up the phone and say, "Get me Sandoval." And Ruben would respond, and you say, "Hey, get me information, man. We got Zippo here." And these guys would go to work. And next thing you know it, you'd come back, maybe the next morning or the day after, and Ruben would say, here's the rumor on the street. This is what's happening. And he'd just throw information out, and you chase it. Or you tell him to chase it. Go after this, man. This could be good. And so that's the reality of what time it is out there. John, did I miss something on this one?
No. It's, the thing is that I haven't, let me preface this by saying that I'm ignorant of what has happened. We don't know actually what's happened with this investigation. However, we can see that we haven't seen detectives out beating the bushes, talking to people. We haven't seen the flyers for Porch Guy. We haven't seen what appears to be an effort to find Nancy Guthrie. So, what are we just sitting back and waiting for the DNA or the data to come in? Because that's not going to be enough to convict anybody of a crime. You need to have more information. It's all equivocal. So you done yelling at your dog?
Yeah, he got into a box of plastic spoons.
Oh,
Oh,
wow.
He was like he got on the table and drug him off. I heard them just scatter everywhere.
Sam, lucky my dog is asleep on my sofa behind me.
Yeah, my dog's insane. He's like, he can be the absolute worst sometimes.
So I just sent you a newspaper clipping. That's the other thing, because we were 30 miles from the U.S. border, just like Pima County, or from the Mexican border. We used to get hits all the time. And this gives you an idea of our clientele. The folks that John and I work. I'll let Josh pull it up.
Yeah, I got it. It's coming up right now.
As you know, I always like to do, I like to always bring receipts. Okay. And these are three, do you think these three guys look like somebody that would hang out? You'd want to hang out with them? How are you going to get information out of these guys once you catch them? And, this is the kind of stuff that we dealt with all the time. And by the way, the other thing about, you can take it down too, Josh. It's covering the whole screen. But this is the difference between a neighborhood, okay, and just a neighborhood versus a community. We had cartel hits. We had guys getting drafted to go do hits for the cartel. And at the time, it was a Sinaloa.
When the Arellano Feliz cartel out of Tijuana.
Out of TJ and the Sinaloa cartels. So we had all of that. All of these folks came from gangs in San Diego County. And some of the first cartel hitmen, some of them came from Oceanside. They came from two gangs. One was called Center Street, one was Pasole, which we just talked about. And those kind of characters that I just showed right there are the kind of characters that they were basically, recruiting people. And so those three guys whacked a bunch of people on Oceanside Boulevard. And those three guys are all connected to Mexico. So when I talk about this stuff in the U.S. border and all this stuff, well, guess what? We did it. We used to do it, okay, all the time. And so it's not like I'm just shooting from the hip. And when I say that, this person, that person, or whatever, I'm not criticizing the person. I'm criticizing the fact that it doesn't mean that you've ever, actually done the job. Because what people don't understand, let's say this had a Mexico connection. Okay. You ever heard of an Article 4 warrant? Article 4? Do a Google search real fast, Josh. Pull it up. When somebody says, yeah, the suspects could be in Mexico. Well, number one, you don't want to say that in public. And here's the reason why. It's going to be in about 30 seconds. Just type in Article 4 Mexico. This is part of their constitution. And this, again, goes back to open mouth, insert foot.
Article 4 in Mexico, Article 4 of the Constitution establishes foundational human rights guaranteeing legal equality between men and women, the right to health protection, the right to a healthy environment, the right to decent housing, and the right to culture.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead. Article 4 law. Let's see here.
Article 4.
Or Article 4 arrest or something to that effect. You can look, you can pull it up when you find it. Essentially what it is let's say there's a Mexican citizen and they commit a crime in the United States.
Yeah, they're covered by the Constitution.
Article 4. And they flee back to Mexico. They flee to Mexico. All right. So let's say hypothetically, as people, early on were saying, well, this could have a Mexico connection. Okay?
Yeah.
I was like going, please don't say that out loud. Because what happens in an Article 4, when a citizen from Mexico commits a crime in the United States and they flee back to Mexico, United States authorities have to go to the Mexican and the U.S. consulate. You have 24 hours. If the Mexican authorities, the federales, find that suspect in Mexico, you have 24 hours to 72 hours, depends on what district they went to get all of your investigative paperwork together, translated into Spanish, and in their hands if they're holding this suspect. Because we don't have an extradition treaty with them.
So that he can be charged in Mexico by a Mexican court. And Mexican courts, correct me if I'm wrong, it is not trial by jury. It is old Roman law. It's a 3-judge tribunal.
So what Article 4 does is it protects their human rights in Mexico because they're citizens of Mexico. Okay. Mm-hmm. So here's the catch-22 in this thing. If you don't have your paperwork ready and that time has expired, guess what they do? Under their rules, they let them go.
Permanently?
Permanently. And now guess what happens? It's a catch-22. They come back to the United States, they cross over the border, and now you go to grab them. All right? And they can legally argue with a good defense attorney, double jeopardy. We've had it happen. Who was the kid that got killed at Oceanside High? John, what was, remember that caper? Did you work that caper?
I'm aware of the caper. It was Jim Wood that worked that caper. And as I recall, the young man was also a Mexican national himself. It was a robbery of a boombox.
Yes.
And so you can take up the narrative from that, but he and I believe he was shot in the head and subsequently expired.
That kid is walking out today, still on the streets. There are a lot of those kind of situations. So when I heard people saying, just throwing out there, yeah, I think it's a Mexican connection. Well, you're opening your mouth and inserting your foot because you're actually putting Nancy Guthrie's case at risk. And this is probably why the sheriff said, we have no Mexican connection here at all. None. Zero. Zilch. Nada. Nothing. Because they don't want to trigger even the thought process of, holy crap, if this guy has crossed the border, we better start getting our act together. Because if they catch him over in Mexico, they've got a certain amount of time frame that they have to put the package together and get it to the U.S. consulate down there, who gets it to the Mexican consulate, who gets it to the federales and to the courts.
Yeah, but would the Mexican authorities work with you guys?
Oh, sure. There are liaisons down there. The feds have liaisons down there.
Is it the same one that works for Harvey?
Huh?
Same one that works for Harvey?
Yeah, exactly. Right. And I mean, San Diego PD had a liaison office that we would work with. We would run our stuff down there, and they would cross over into TJ and meet with their cohorts over there. And then that information was going down. I mean, I worked the El Torito case, and John knows because he was the first guy through the door. We talked a guy back from Mexico City, and we had his nephew, and it was me and Augie De La Rosa and others, Brian and Danny, and we talked the cousin or the nephew of the suspect. There were two suspects. And John was the first. He was a patrol sergeant at the time, right, John, if I remember right?
Yeah, I was a patrol sergeant. It was Josh, very briefly, this was the, and I won't go into graphic detail, but it was the torture murder of the manager of an El Torito restaurant. And I was happened to be in the district when the call came out, like at over 2:30 in the morning. And I won't burden you with the entire tale, but there was doesn't look right the moment I came in there, and Chris followed up on it. But it was a pretty horrific murder scene. I'll rate it in the top 10 of those I've seen.
Yeah, it was a mess.
Wow.
They butchered him with the kitchen knives from the kitchen. And anyway, we end up identifying the suspects, and they had all fled to first TJ because one of them got one of his kidneys cut. And we called it blood money because it was $5,000 that was stolen. And guess how much the price was from a doctor in TJ to fix the guy? Just happened to have $5,000 available.
I will fix you, like the old Earl Scheib commercials. I will fix your kidney for $49.95.
Oh my God.
So they pay the doctor in blood money. And the second suspect says, well, you stay here, you get fixed. I'm going to Mexico City. And so he goes to Mexico City, and then he goes to Avadio just outside of Mexico City to hide out. And we're on these guys because the two guys that were in also on it, there was a total of 4 of them, rolled over on the other 2 guys. And so we knew who they were.
So what,
Well, the
so
guy
what are you
gets his-
saying, Chris? Are you saying, I'm sorry, are you saying that you think there might be a connection?
To Mexico?
Yeah.
I'm not saying any of that.
Okay.
Again, I'm not saying any of that. And if I did think it, I wouldn't say it on the air. To my point just a moment ago.
Yeah.
I tried, guys.
But that's
the
all
vault,
right.
the vault's in the house. The vault's in
Real
the
man.
house.
Right. Now, somebody from the FBI may say it, but I won't say it. That said, the idea of getting down into the Vadio down there and into the neighborhoods, literally, we got the one of the suspects who was one of the nephews of one of the main players down in Mexico, the actual stabber. Well, they were both stabbers, but the guy who did the most damage. We said to his nephew, here's 2 tickets. One for you and one for your uncle. His name was Mauricio Ramirez. Here's one for Mauricio, and here's one for you. Yours is 2 ways. His is 1 way. Why are we doing all this? What's going on here? Well, here's the deal. And Augie De La Rosa was, translating for us, and Ruben Sandoval. Here's the deal, man. What's that? You're going to go down there, and we're going to have you get him, and you're going to go to the local telephone pole where the phone is, and you're going to call us. And when you call us, you're going to put your uncle on the phone, and we're going to talk to him about what the deal was. He goes, well, what's the deal? He says, well, when you get your uncle, we'll tell you. So long story short, this kid flies into Mexico City on compliments of the state of California, gets off the plane, goes into Avadio where his uncle is, and says, hey, they know it's you, and they want to talk to you. What do you mean they want to talk to me? Are they here? No, they're going to be on the phone. He goes to the phone, picks up the phone, calls us as planned, and we anticipated. And here was the deal. Hey, there's $10,000 reward for you from El Chorrito Corporation. What do you mean? Yeah, they want you arrested. You think we should tell the federales? Oh man, no, don't do that. Don't do that.
Probably
Whatever
not.
you do. Yeah, we got your other guy up here in Tijuana, which, by the way, he got in a knife fight after he was healed by this time, and he got murdered in TJ. So he's out of service. So now we just got this one guy left. And he begged us on the phone, please don't tell the federales. Please don't tell the federales. We said, no problem. You're in luck. Your nephew has an airline ticket. And I'll talk to the DA, who just happens to be standing next to me with Augie De La Rosa. It was Mark Bettine at the time, John. And I'll see if they're willing to take the death penalty off the table if you fly back with your nephew and turn yourself into the border. And we won't tell anybody. And guess what, Josh? He did it.
I'm shocked.
I'm standing at the San Ysidro border checkpoint. The guy walks up. I go, Mauricio Ramirez? He goes, sí. I said, venga aquí, por favor. Come on over here. Turn around. Click, click. And they handed him off to us. And he went to prison. And the rest is history. But that's old style police work. We didn't have all the crap they have today. That's how you do it. John and I have done it many times, and so have other people. It's not just us. There are a lot of people that have done this. Many people. But when you work on the border, it's a different breed that you're dealing with because it's an international problem. It could be an international crisis. If you do something wrong, you could be creating an international crisis. And so those are the kind of things where, in this case, I believe the cops should be out on the streets, flooding the streets with street cops, pounding the pavement, saying, hey, does this guy look familiar? Does this guy, tell me about what you know, what you've heard, what you've seen, what you smelled. I want to know. Help me out here.
Well, that's why I, for whatever reason, can't wrap my head around. Like, I know that Sheriff Nanos, he has axes to grind with everybody who's ever opposed him politically. And he has some of his most experienced detectives on phone duty. I mean, that's like, I don't understand how that's even tolerated by the department. I don't understand that at
because
all.
he's the top law officer in Pima County. He's
And there's
as close
nothing
to a
anybody can do.
monarch. He's as close to a monarch in modern day America, an elected sheriff, unless he's arrested. But if it's an issue of his deciding what's important, um, he's the top officer. And police managers. I worked for a chief of police who once said it's management's right to mismanage. Now that's a pretty shocking statement,
Yeah, that's crazy.
but you will find other people that will say, well, no, I don't view it as mismanagement. You will always find a group who will say, no, it's not the case, but he's an elected official. He's elected and you're not going to get rid of him. And if he's vindicative, that I hate to say this, I said it on Chris's show last night, that's a solid majority of the police administrators I worked for were petty and vindictive. There were good ones, don't get me wrong.
Wait, John, are you criticizing? No, I'm just kidding.
No,
I'm kidding.
But you don't want to get wrapped up in the sound and fury over your working for sociopath.
Look, I get it.
Yeah, but because that's simply the environment. So you just try and stay away from them and do your job.
Sure. Let me read a couple of these and then I'll get you guys out of here. And again, I appreciate you guys' time. How long did John and Chris work together?
Since 1982.
1982.
So before I was born.
I pulled
Thanks for making me feel like Methuselah there, dude.
You're welcome.
Yeah, since 1982. And at some point, I mean, we've got some old pictures of us as kids. And we worked as detectives together. As a detective sergeant. That started in 90.
Yeah, I was transferred in 90 to the Bureau.
Yeah.
But John had already worked homicide long before I got there.
I just made the mistake of promoting. I shouldn't have done that. I should have stayed in homicide, but I became a sergeant, and I mean there were some fun times with that. But if I'd had it to do over again, I'd have just stayed in homicide.
Yeah. Huh. So
and then probably paid with my soul, since my personality is warped anyway.
All right, so it says online where Charles Guthrie's info is that Nancy's husband who passed away? Obituary, cemetery, etc. Relatives are listed. It shows Nancy Guthrie in the following 6/23/26. Family has made it official that Nancy Guthrie is deceased. I have not seen that. I do know that when my grandfather passed away, my grandmother's her plot is paid for. Her headstone's actually up. It just doesn't have a year on it yet. So I don't know. And I always tell her, I said, whenever we go there to put flowers, I always go, that's so creepy looking at that. Have you heard of that before, by the way? Like her headstone's up with her birth year on it. It just has no death year because she's not dead.
I think it's a reasonable supposition that, I have believed from the outset that this was never kidnapping, that this was an elimination homicide. But that's just, I'm merely basing that on my experience and my assessment of what we've seen. But, they can believe that she's passed, but it, has no legal standing.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It would have to be done by,
Yeah, it's got to go through the court. There has to be a legal determination that her life has ended.
Okay, so people are saying it's very common. Okay, I never really think much about it except when we go there, and I always go, "Oh, look, there's your there's your headstone there." Mexican tips are a hustle to
waiting.
Yeah, exactly. I told her, I'll say, well, I guess I'll have to get it out and etch. And I don't know if that came with the price or not, but it's all paid for. So I don't know if we have to pay extra for the death year, but I'll be sure to look into that because now I need to go into my financial planning a little better. Mexican tips are a hustle to have the DNA test paid for, to ID those bodies and return to their families for free. In my opinion, taking advantage. You must be talking about the graveyards. I mean, it's possible. I don't know. I never really thought about that, but God, I wish, those people deserve some closure as well too. So, if they get it paid for, I guess that it's all right with that. My husband's father told him he was only given one mouth and two ears, need to listen more than speaking because you know what you know, and now you know what they know. It's a good point. Good life lesson.
Excellent. Yeah, excellent view.
That's right. Good life lesson for my husband. Love everyone there. Please stay safe out there. We appreciate it very much.
Thank you, Laura.
Yeah, thank you. And John, tell everybody where we can get your books at.
My books are primarily available on Amazon, and I want to thank the people who have purchased it. I have murder mysteries that came out in the early part of this century, and God, that sounds so strange to say that. Between 2006 and 2012, a series of cozy murder mysteries set in a world of collectible teddy bears. And I do know about teddy bears.
You do know about teddy bears.
I know more about teddy bears than probably a guy with my street experience should admit. The books that I'm writing right now are my memoirs. The first is called Service with a Sneer. That covers my time as a military policeman and in the Air Force, and then working for Riverside County Sheriffs. And I saw we had a comment here from a lady who lives in Rancho Mirage. I was a contract city deputy in Rancho Mirage back in the early 80s. And the next book is called Beach Blanket Bedlam, and it covers my first 2.5 years as a patrol officer in Oceanside, a city that at the time was had the label "Where the Debris Meets the Sea."
Yeah.
And an exceptionally one of the most violent cities in the state, as Chris has made clear. And I'm hoping that next month, my next book, Bring Out Your Dead, will come out. And that is, we'll cover my first couple of years in homicide. And there are some pretty horrible murders that are covered in there. So, that is just to be aware. It's not like I revel in it, but I'm going to tell you, how these murders are solved.
Very cool. Well, I appreciate you being here, and
I love being here. Thank you, Josh.
Always interesting, and love getting to talk to you. And Chris, tomorrow night. So tomorrow night on the Interview Room, make sure to go over there and hit that notification bell and sub up if you haven't. Anjanette Levy with Karen McDonough. They're going to do their thing on there. It's just going to be those two. And then Wednesday will be on there, John and I, and you'll have another special guest as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
We're going to talk everything. We're going to talk about Bitcoin, machine learning, artificial intelligence, all the other stuff that could be in play here for tools for law enforcement. And you're not going to want to miss it. It's going to be a super show.
Well, I'll see you guys.
Can I answer Britt here?
Please.
What John's book is? The book in Oceanside is called Beach Blanket Bedlam. And there's a photograph of me on the cover looking at a customer.
There's all kinds of, oh, is that the one? Yeah, there's all kinds. Yeah. The great thing about, where John was just talking real fast, is Where the Debris Meets the Sea. That is a great name for a book, even, John. That should be one of your titles.
I considered writing that. I considered writing a novel of all the stories that I can't tell in the memoirs.
I mean, if the great thing about it is the town as a whole today is totally different than when we were there. I mean, we had everything, X-rated theaters, strip clubs. It
like
was
Sodom
all
and Gomorrah.
Fights bars were the entertainment, were the fights. And if it was such a savage and brutal town, like a combination of the Walking Dead and Dodge City. If somebody had come up to you as I was writing a report and pointed to a place where there was an abandoned little amusement park and said, someday there's going to be a hotel there where it's $650 a night to stay, and there'll be a restaurant next door with a Michelin star. I'd have looked at that person and said, you've obviously been chewing on the magic mushrooms and you need to stop. I mean, it was incomprehensible that what it has been turned into through this place attracting tourists from around the globe.
It's beautiful now. It's beautiful. But we were on the ground floor before, and then it was the work of the street guys way back in the day, all through the 80s, the guys that had come through the 70s and trained us up. And then we took that all through the 90s, and Jim Wood, who's our dear friend who just recently passed away, we're actually going to his service next week, actually.
Yeah.
And he got elected.
Food. Looking forward to the Mexican food.
He got elected mayor, and they mowed everything down. Everything disappeared. And they rezoned the entire city. They had, Manchester development come up and took over and bought all the land and all this other stuff. Today, it's gorgeous. Back when we were on the street, we were the third most violent city per capita in the United States.
That's crazy.
Yeah, town without pity.
And they needed entertainment, and with that entertainment came all kinds of creatures.
Yeah, and you're also right next to the border.
We had a combination.
And we were on Interstate 5, which was like a drain catch between LA and San Diego. So we'd end up with parolees, in town. But I will say this. It was working as a street cop and a homicide detective in that era was the most fun you could have with your clothes on. The high point of my life without question. I'd have done it for free. I mean, there were nights when I'd go, well, let me get this straight. You're giving me a car with gasoline and a gun, and you're paying me to go out and do this? I hope nobody finds out what a grift I'm running here. So they were great days. As far as there was a question about buying the books as a pair. I think Amazon offers buying them as a pair. And I will let everybody know, I don't have a website. All I have really is you can find me on Facebook. I do answer questions, so long as they're sensible questions. And
yeah, you shouldn't say that.
Yeah, we should do just war stories one night, John.
I want
to. We should do that. The war story.
That would be a blast.
Yeah, and you could pull up the old home. There's all kinds of craziness, but we could talk about Killer Sally. Where we got all kinds of kids. John just did a documentary on the Triana murder.
The Triana murders. There's a podcast called Coastal Crimes, and that was an ambush murder for murder for hire.
Yeah, I mean, we had so many high profile stuffs that they've made movies out of, and it's kind of like, okay, yeah, I did that one. I was over there, yeah, but blah blah blah, and it was great, like John said. And so I appreciate you inviting us on, as always, Josh.
I always love it, man. Thank you so much.
And your mods and your audience. You're all great.
Thank you, Lab Rats. Thank you for understanding what we talk about. I'm not criticizing. you know, 30%. So
Maybe less.
just we got this is about Nancy Guthrie. It's not about becoming famous.
That's right.
That's the way I roll.
Cool, man. Well, I
All right.
appreciate you guys. And I'll see you guys Wednesday.
Aloha.
All right. Bye-bye.
Vaya con Dios.
See ya.
Bye. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Let's see. Thank you for being here. We'll see you guys on the show on Wednesday. Also, Karen and Anjanette on the interview room tomorrow. Should be fantastic. So good week of programming coming up. Thanks a lot, guys. I appreciate all the support. Thank you for hitting the like button for me. Please share, subscribe. It means the world. And appreciate you very much. Bye.